Okay, so before we start taking off the clutch, I'm just going to see if I can actually get this wiring loom to come out of this void here. We took the radiator off in the last video, which actually gave us a bit more room to work with. So I'm hoping that I can get these cables through without damaging any of them. I want to slowly feed them through. I don't want to be destroying anything if I can help it. Oh, look at that. And that's the main wiring loom that goes down the length of the bike. And we've got this one here, which I believe is the horn, which I modified for the air compressor, like so. And then all we've got left on the front is the control wiring for the handlebars and the indicators. So we should now be able to move down to the coils and work on those. So these coil packs are held in very easily with a couple of bolts. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the power supply. Now it's important to take note of what cable goes where. You've got a positive and a negative on your coil packs. There's two coil packs, and you've got one cable here, which in my case, the front one on the rear is black and yellow, and on the opposing side is orange and white. And you definitely want to take your time when you're doing these. You pretty much anything we're doing here, you want to take your time. This is being a bit fiddly to get off, but it will come. There we go. So we've got orange and white on the rear side. Just see if I can tell which one's which. I'll have to refer to the service manual to see which is positive and negative. But anyway, so like I said in the previous video, this is what supplies the coils, your spark plugs, with a spark. This is where the current comes from. So if you don't have a spark, it could well be that you've got a bad coil pack. But we're just going to go ahead and remove these cables altogether. So on the front we've got a white, I think that's just a solid white, yeah, and we've got another orange and white stripe on the rear. Another thing that it could be if you're not getting a spark is it could be a bad ground, which is these posts here. It's always a good idea to take these off and give them a good clean, rub them down and give them a clean, because it could just be that you're not actually grounding at all. So this is an 8mm bolt. This is just a hollow tubing that carries the current from the coil up to the frame. It goes through like so. And you've always got the longer stems at the back. So these longer stems here compared to these front ones, these ones go at the rear according to the manual. Okay, so now both of the coil packs are free. You've got your front and your rear. And now if you follow these black cables, they will go to where your spark plugs are located. So it's a good idea now to get hold of a 10mm spanner or socket, as we're going to need to take off the guards here, these head cases, so that we can get to the spark plugs. Okay, so it's this head cover here that we need to remove in order to get to the spark. I've loosened off these 10mm bolts already, and that's literally all that you have to do. This one and the opposing diagonal side is where your spark plugs are located. And take off your cover. Try and put this somewhere that it's not going to get scratched and damaged. And then if you follow from the coil packs, that wire that came off, you'll find this cable here, and this is where your spark plug is housed. This just pops off like so, and that's what provides the current from the coil pack to the spark plug. And then inside here is your spark plug. This is an 18mm, and you want to get it on a socket with an extension if you can. Pop it in there and loosen up that spark plug. Now I'm going to leave the spark plug in for now, because otherwise there'll be a void in the engine, a hole. As you can see, I've put things in holes that are already present, so it's always a good idea to block up any holes if you're going to be leaving the engine for a long period of time. I'm going to be leaving the spark plug in as it is for the minute. I'm going to do the same on the other side, and that will release the coil packs so that we can remove these wires altogether. It's your second cover. And as you can see, this coil runs all the way to this spark here. It's actually quite loose. That could be why we were having problems with the rear cylinder. Was giving us some issues a little while ago. So now that both of the coils are removed from the spark plugs, we can actually start to feed the wires for the coil packs in and around the bike and remove them. You can see this one's loose here. This one is your rear cylinder. So that's something to bear in mind. The front coil pack here supplies the rear cylinder, so it's kind of backwards. So the rear coil supplies the front cylinder. You'll be able to tell quite easily because the front coil has a very short cable attached to it. So the coil comes over the frame here and underneath, so we're going to feed this through from this side. There's the end that you saw me remove from the front cylinder. These tips can be removed, as you can see. We can just release them. And then inside here, what you have is a little spike. You might get a little glimmer of that. I'll try and zoom in. There's a spike here, and then you've got your actual copper cable here. And when you receive a new coil pack with these coils, with these cables, they will come separated a lot of the time. So all you need to do to fix them together is to physically push them in and twist. Okay, you want to make sure they're in really tight. And this spike that you can see inside here has almost like a thread or a barb on it that helps grind and hold into the copper wire on the inside of this cable. So we're just going to feed this through the bike. Always a good idea to try and remember whereabouts it's going. It's going on the right hand side of the frame, just underneath this bar here. But we can take this out like so, and then that will allow us to remove it from the bike altogether, like so. So now our coil packs are completely gone, they're deleted from the bike. Now that that's been removed, the coil packs have been completely taken off of the bike, we should now only have a few other bits to take note of, such as grounding points, that will allow us to remove this massive nest of wiring. So let's have a quick look around. We can disconnect the fuel pump wire, which is this little thing here. Let me just zoom you folks in a bit, like so. So we've got the fuel pump down here. They've got two wires coming off of it, positive and a negative, and on my bike they're going into a connector, like so, to the main harness. We're going to disconnect that. This huge bundle of joy that someone has left for us, of relays, and this is the indicator relay. I know because I changed it. And then we've got ignition relays and light relays and switch relays and just a whole hoard of crap. That's a ground there, so we're going to disconnect that one. This is just it's just mad, isn't it? Look at the state of it. Why did Suzuki make these so complicated? Oh, we've got the rectifier to also worry about. We've got the rectifier connected at the bottom here, which is plugged into this junction box here. So I'm going to get some snips and cut that off. I'm going to cut that cable tie there, and that will allow us to remove the rectifier. Yep, there's the rectifier disconnected. We've got another cable here, which I think must be ground for the battery, I think. We've got the ignition barrel over here. Okay, so that's good. This green junction box here, that feeds to the ignition. So we can disconnect that. Okay, that's the ignition. We've got this one here. I mean, I could just pull them all apart, but I kind of want to know what they do before I disconnect them all. Oh, that looks like it could be clutch related. Is that brake switch? That could be brake switch. Positive and negative. Yep. So this one here that you can see, this comes down behind the brake fluid reservoir and follows along to the front, to the rear brake pedal. So this, I believe, is the rear pedal switch for your brake light. So we can take that out. And we should actually be able to feed that down out of the way. So, yeah, that's definitely the switch for the rear brake. The foot brake. That's ECU. We've already covered that. We need to repair this, I believe. I think this is the one with the. Is it this one? One of them has a broken wire. Must be a different one. That's ignition, we've done that. There it is. This is the other half of the ECU. You can see these wires are just absolutely destroyed. Probably why the bikes never really run right. So we've got a braided type cable coming out of the cable, the bigger braided cable which goes down to the solenoid. We've got one that junctions out of there up to a green and yellow single cable which quite easily disconnects. Again, a lot of this stuff that you're seeing right now is not going to be relevant to you, but the reason I'm saying everything out loud is so that I have a video reference and audio reference of where everything goes, because this is not stock. A lot of this has been messed with in the past. So while I can refer to the service manual for some stuff, I'm not going to be able to refer to it for everything. Especially when it comes to things like this, where we've got the same types of connectors being used on different cables of the same color. It complicates things. Getting this thing to run smoothly again is going to be quite interesting. Okay, so we've got another cable that goes down to what I believe, oh, that goes that side. That's going down and under here and going up. Stator. That's got to be something to do with the stator or stator. Blue, green, black with a white stripe. It is color coordinated, so I'm going to remove this one and this one. That's the connector there, and that goes all the way down under the frame and around to underneath the side casing here, which is where the stator lives, I believe. Oh, look at the mess. This is just insane. Let's So we've got the fuse box here. I'm going to take that out, like so. Fuse box. This is a very boring video for you guys, I know. I'm sorry about that, and I'm sorry about the audio. That comes up from the rectifier. We've already done that. And probably no, that's fine. That's loose. That's loose. Oh, we've got one here, which is going into this big reel of joints here, and we've got a double white going into a red and black and a black and white, a very thick black and white, two small whites. I don't think there's another connector the same as this one, and that goes down that's the, I believe that's the decomp here, this dish that you can't see on screen. It's down here. That pin goes from there. This big braided cable here, that goes all the way down underneath the right hand side engine casing and goes up to the starter. There's also what looks like a grounding point near the front as well. So I'm just wondering if I can disconnect that on its own. Yes, I think I can. And this is also what looks like is feeding the coil packs, these cables coming off of the solenoid here. So I'm going to disconnect this big braided cable, this thick heavy duty braided cable. I'm going to take it off of this terminal here, and we've got some yellow with black stripe cables and white with black cables, and then a connection point here. So we're going to disconnect that. That goes into the bundle that's here, and this goes directly to the starter cable that is also fixed to the starter cable. So we're going to get a 10mm on here and take off this cable. We're getting there slowly. It's quite a mess, as you can see, but I have seen worse on these bikes. But it's going to be fun putting it back together, that's for sure. Okay. So that is the starter motor cable free, and then we have the solenoid here, which goes down the positive cable. And we've got, that's strange, got a braided one that's been cut off here. Yeah, that is strange. Okay, I'm not liking that. There is a lot of repair work that needs to be done here. A lot. So we should now be able to remove the harness altogether. I don't think there's anything holding it in place. That is the joy I've got for the next 3 months. You know when you do something and you think, shit, I shouldn't have done that? Yeah, that's how I feel right now. That was interesting. Look at this. This is what I've got to repair over the coming weeks, and I can't say I'm looking forward to it. There are so many splits and cracks and so much corrosion going on with this stuff. I've got to repair it properly. I don't mind soldering, and I don't mind messing with things and taking my time. The bike is not going to be ready for at least 2 to 3 months from now anyway, so this is something that I can start working on, put it to one side and come back to it over the coming weeks. And there's a lot to learn in regards to the wiring harness. Basically just how to put it all back together. Like I said, this is not stock wiring. Some of it is, a lot of it is not. We are so close now to only having a rolling frame. One thing I've obviously figured out is that I can't really take the front end off until I've got a way of supporting the bike. So I'm going to go online and I'm going to look up one of those sort of pneumatic
bike jacks, one of the small ones that you use for quad bikes and stuff. They seem pretty popular and they're very, very affordable for what they are. And hopefully then we'll be able to get the jack underneath the bike, get it jacked up, and we can start stripping the front end off altogether. We can start getting the wheel off and start taking the forks off, and we can also start getting the underside of the bike taken care of as well, and then the engine can come out, hopefully. So anyway guys, thanks again for sticking around. I'm sorry the video was a little bit late. I'll catch you in the next video where we're going to start working on some other bits and pieces in that airbox area. Alright, take care guys, I'll see you soon.